Okay, I think we're holding by Amr Yehuda Shmuel.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Amr Yehuda Shmuel, the bottom line on Nun Hayim at base 55, B. Good morning. Thank you. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. In the source of our learning, we should have the base of Mikdash. Learning for Shlema. My father and Naftali ben Bela. And whoever else needs a report Shlema. Okay. We're getting close to the end of the parak. This is what we say every day in davening. We're going through the Mishnayos here, and from the Chatas to the Eila to the Shlamim to the Asham Shlamim. Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel, Ein Chayav Mishum Tuma Ela Al Oirech Meir Shmoinim V'Sheva Al Rechav Meir Shleishim V'Chamesh. Okay, we're talking about the different areas in the Azara that you were allowed to do the shechita in, or where you were allowed to eat the food. We said that you weren't allowed to do the shechita in the chambers, in the rooms that were on the side. Tzidei Tzadim wasn't allowed. Anyway, now it says, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Shmuel was his second teacher. He says that someone that's tamei that comes onto the harabayas, so he's only going to have to bring the karban if he enters into the azara, and the size of the azara is 187 amas from the eastern wall to the western wall in the azara itself. When we say the western wall, by the way, we're talking about the harabayas wall, not the azara wall. So from the 187 from one side to the other, and then it's on the width of 135 amas. So 135 amas from north to south, 187 from east to west. Amas, from your elbow to the top. About a foot and a half here. So, okay, that was what Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. So if someone is tamei and enters in there, so that's going to be the entering into the Azara B'Tumah. Tani Tama Kamid Rab Nachman, there was a Tana that taught in front of Rab Nachman. He taught the following. The Tana means that he was someone that knew the Brises. He was the yeshiva library, because they didn't have things written down, so he knew it. Kol Azara Isa Meya Ushmein V'Shebal Recha Meya V'Shleishim V'Chamesh. The entire Azara was 187 by 135. Amalei, Rav Nachman says to him, Hachi Amali Abba. Now, my father said to me, I wonder if it means Rav. If it means Rav or if it means his father. His father, Rav Nachman's father, is either Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak or Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. I think we usually assume it's Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. That was a discussion in Gittin. But Abba is also a name for Rav. It says, so says Abba. Okay. Okay. That's if you translate Abba as his father. Okay. In this area that you're talking about, which is 187 by 135, the Koyanim can come inside there to eat the Kachi Kachim. We said that the very holy sacrifices have to be eaten in the courtyard of the temple. And how big is that? That courtyard is 187 by 135 amas. And also, Shechtim Shan Kachi Kalam, we said that the lesser holiness sacrifices were allowed to be slaughtered anywhere in that courtyard. It didn't have to be on the north. It could be anywhere in there. So that would be 187 by 135. The Chayavin Mishum Tumah. And this is also the area where you're going to be chayav for someone that comes in his tummy. Gemara asks, when you mention this 187 by 135, l'mutei mai, what area are you coming to exclude that someone that comes in there is going to be pater? Over here you're going to be chayav, but there's got to be something else that you're referring to that over there you'd be pater. So we say, ilema l'mutei chalainas. Maybe there were windows in the wall, and the 187 starts not from the center of the window; it starts from the edge of the wall, which means that if someone like puts his head in the window or something, so he's not going to be chayav because the wind that the until you come out of the window, that's the window itself. The thickness of the window wouldn't be part of the inside, or maybe the lasis, or maybe the thickness of the doorway, the thickness of the wall. Someone's on top of the wall, and is not inside; it's just on top of the wall. Right. Where does it start? Where it says that's not what we're excluding because Tanina, we already learned in the Mishnah, the windows and the thickness of the wall are considered inside, so you will be chayiv in tumah. Sometimes Tanina would tell me, I don't need Rav Nachman or Rav Yehuda Shmuel to say this. I know it already from a Mishnah. Here we're saying not just that I know it already from a Mishnah, but I know the opposite from a Mishnah. That you actually will be chayiv. So the Gemara says, "Ella mute lishkes." We're coming to exclude the chambers, the rooms that were on the side. That those rooms, so you're not going to be chayiv if someone if someone enters tumah, and also you can't eat over there and you can't shecht over there, like we said before. It says ibnu yisbachol. Where were the rooms built? Are they built outside the courtyard area? You know, in the wall you can have rooms that are protruding inward, and you can have rooms that were protruding outward. We're using the wall is used as one of the walls of the chamber. The wall of the question is it protruding inward or is it protruding outward? So if it's protruding outward, which means that really the chamber is not in the courtyard, just the entrance is in the courtyard. So if it's protruding outwards, just you have an entrance in the courtyard, does that become part of the courtyard? Over here we're saying now that you're going to be pater, but we have a Mishnah that says that if it's built even on the outside, but as long as it's open to the inside, Teichen Kodesh, we consider it holy. You will be chayav for tumah. In other words, we follow the doorway. When he answers, yeah, but no, that's only midrabanan. We said that it's Kodesh, you're right, but it's Kodesh only midrabanan, which means that you won't actually be chayav on that area. That would be a good teretz for us. The 187 by 135 is excluding the rooms, that even though rabbinically we say that it's Kodesh, but you won't be chayav if you enter in there when a person's tummy. Where it says it, the Rais Alai, he's telling me it's only rabbinic. The chambers are only considered holy. The entrances into the courtyard is only a rabbinic law. It's not a biblical law. Tanya, we have a brisa that says, the chambers that were built outside on the Temple Mount, even though the entrance is inside the doorway, inside the doorway is inside the wall, which is in the Azara, Psuchas L'Kodesh, it's open to the holies. How do you know that a kohen is allowed to eat there and is allowed to enter there, and enter there and eat there the kachik kachim and the remnants of the mincha, which is also kachik kachim? Talmud Laimar. So it says regarding the mincha, it says that it's supposed to be eaten as matzos. And where is it eaten? Eaten in the holy place. B'chatzar oyel moed yechlua. It says in the holy place, and then it goes on to tell me in the chatzar oyel moed, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting. Torah ribsa chatzeres harbe. Coming to tell me that there's more than one area that you can eat. I guess because it says Chatzar Makom Kodesh and Chatzar Al Mayed. Hey. Huh?
Even this one territory.
Oh my gosh. Like the Stein's going to Eretz Yisrael. But if Yitzi was here, he would comment on the jacket.
Cold. Cold. No, I think it's the other way. Oh,
Okay. So what we learn now is achas. So it gives us a lot of courtyards, a lot of places to eat. Regarding the eating of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which means that you told me that the chambers are holy only rabbinically, but I have a source that says that you're allowed to eat the carbon mincha even in the chambers, which means that it would be a biblical level, not a rabbinic level. So marava la'achila shayni. When it comes to eating, we're going to consider it part of the azara. When it comes to tumah, we're going to consider it chutz la'azara. Okay, it's a little surprising, but it's like a double standard here on this on the chambers. You consider it holy that you're allowed to eat there, but you're not going to consider it holy regarding if you make a tummy. So the Gemara says, you have to, this is a surprise for Tanya, but we have a brisa regarding tumah. You're not going to consider the chambers to be the holies, but we have a brisa that says lishkis abnuyos. Parentheses says lachol psuchas l'kodesh. It's open to the inside. Kayanim nechlasu sham vaychlam sham kachik kadashim. Ain't sheichtim sham kachin kalim. Chayim misham tumah. It says clearly that Yechayev Misham Tumah. The whole brisa says like this: that the chambers that are built on the outside, but are open to the doorway is open to the courtyard. So the Kayanim are allowed to enter and eat the kachim kachim. They can't shech the kachim kalim, and they're Chayev Misham Tumah. The Gemara, so that we said Yechayev Misham Tumah. So the Gemara says, Lav Amrit Ein Sheichtim. We said already that you can't shecht over there, then that must mean also Taninami Ein Chayavin. We're going to have to amend the brisa. The brisa says Chayavin, that Yechayev, which created a problem for us because we said that it's only rabbinically holy. And now we're saying that Chayav Misham Tumah, that means it's biblically holy. So we're going to amend the brisa to say Ein Chayavin, that you're not Chayav, which takes us back to that it's only holy rabbinically. Gemara says, Bishlaimayin Sheichtim. 1 second. I understand you're telling me that you're compelled to amend the brisa because it says you're not allowed to shecht in the chambers, and therefore you're going to have to say that you also that you're not going to be chayav if someone enters there when he's tummy. So 1 second. When it comes to shechting in the chambers, in shechtin, bina keneged pesach v'leka, we learned when it comes to the shechita, it says we had like 3 psukim yesterday. We had these different verses that say that it needs to be facing the entrance, and then we had those walls on the back, the doorways in the back of the ulam, the pishpashin, that would make it considered the entire courtyard would be considered facing the entrance. So I understand why once you go into a room, you're not facing the entrance. Ella ein chayavin amai. But if you're going to amend it and say Ein Chayavin, why do you have to amend? Why do you have to say Ein Chayavin? Maybe you take a Chayav. It doesn't say that you're only not allowed to go to places that are facing the entrance of the tent of meeting. We're on Nun Vav 56a, towards the end. Halfway down. So the Gemara says, so now we're saying that what's the reason why you would say Ein Chayav and maybe Yataka Chayav in those chambers? It's not like by Shechita where it needs to be facing the entrance. Gemara says, according to you, Ein Sheichtim, when it said over there that you're not allowed to shecht in the chambers, because we're talking about Kachim Kalim, which really could be anywhere in the Azara. It doesn't have to be just on the north. Anywhere in the Azara you could shecht, but not in the chambers. So we said, Mila Yaskinan, were we not dealing with the Ikka Shchita Kneged Pesach, where we're talking about whether really it was Shchita Kneged Pesach. You see, we already resolved the issue of the doorway by putting the pishpashin in the back of the ulam to make the entire courtyard facing the entrance. They didn't have to only be in the front because there was an entranceway in the back as well. So if that's the case, so there's an entranceway in the back, so then the chambers should also be in front of the entrance. The Kashchita Keneged Pesach, the Leka, if we're talking about that where you're not facing the entrance, why do you have to tell me that it's possible to shecht over there? You don't have to tell me anything. I know it's possible because it's not Lifnei Pesach Hayel Mayed. It must be that it is Pesach Hayel Mayed, but it's still possible. So once it's still possible, even though it's Lifnei Pesach Hayel Mayed, then I would have that same logic also for Tumah. Ella Alfagav the Kashachid can I get a Pesach? That even though it is Keneged a Pesach, Tani ain't Shechtem Mishum B'lei Kaddish because it's not considered perfectly holy on a biblical level. So Tani Nami ain't Chayavin. So that's what would leave us with that we're gonna have to amend the brisa and say that there's no Tumah, there's no penalty for Tumah in the chambers. From the rabbinic law. Oh, it's maybe it knows you're about to get on the plane
It's a
and
different shots.
oh, it's the old one.
No, when I lost the old one, they let me load it on this.
Oh.
This is my regular.
But maybe you can only have it on one.
Oh, no, it just wouldn't have this page. That's the other, for some reason.
Oh.
Rabbi, I had a question.
Yeah.
When you say kachim kalim and kachim kadashim, right? The holier sacrifice and the less holy sacrifice. When you say it could be done anywhere in the Azara, could that be done just on the Mizbeach and then the kachim just done on the north side of the Mizbeach, or your literally means anywhere in the Azara?
So the kachim, the more holy was, if you look at the Mizbeach in the chart, so anywhere north of the Mizbeach, you could check. Now, north of the Mizbeach also possibly was a machlekes, but also contained the area that was northwest and northeast. There was different opinions about that, but definitely due north of the Mizbeach, that was allowed. Kachei Kalim could be anywhere in the entire Azara. There's no anywhere in the entire Azara, all around the chamber, all around the sanctuary, anywhere it was allowed to be shechted. On the other side of the Mizbeach, you could shecht it. Now the rings were actually on the north. The rings that held the animal were on the north, so that would be the most convenient place to shecht it.
Right.
And we spoke about like a day or two ago about how we know that you're allowed to shecht kachi kalim on the north also. Maybe it's exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
We said that it's not. We said you're allowed to shecht on the north, but there was a discussion on how we got to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now we're talking about if you're allowed to shecht in the chambers. We said that you're not allowed to shecht in the chambers. We thought maybe the reason is because you're not facing the entrance. We said, no, you're facing the entrance, and still you're not allowed to shecht. They said, oh, so it must be because the chambers aren't holy enough. And if that's the case, then that would explain also why there's the laws of Tumah don't apply in the chambers. Okay, so now the Gemara says, in the chambers they had each one had a different purpose. There was a place where they slept. There was a place where they kept the flowers. A place where they kept the stones. There was all types of stuff going on. It was a big operation in the temple. So there was a mikveh.
It's always downstairs.
Not necessarily.
In that chamber, it said they.
Oh, there was a Beis Hamaikah. There was a mikveh downstairs, but there was another one that had a mikveh on the roof.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Which one?
I think Beis Parva or something. Yeah, he got the mikveh up to the roof. Yeah. It was like with a water tower.
Rooftop.
So.
South Beach.
So now that we said that the Bryce is talking about when it says the 187 by 135, that's where you're allowed to eat, and that's where you're allowed to shecht, but not, we said it's excluding the rooms. The Gemara says, Ula'achila leibina k'neged Pesach. We were saying that when it comes to the shechita, it needed to be in front of the entrance. So, we're saying for the achila, it doesn't need to be in front of the entrance. For Tanya, we have a brayso that says Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Yehuda Imer. Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda says Shnei pishpashin. We had this before. Hayu bebeis hachalifos. The beis hachalifos was the area behind the ulam, behind the hallway in the front, the top of the T. So, and those doorways were, and they were small doors. The goyvan shmeina, they were high 8 amas. Kedei lahachsher sazara, that would permit the entire courtyard. Lachilas kachi kachim, l'schitas kachim kalim. We know that kachi kachim sacrifices needed to be eaten in the courtyard. So those doorways would allow for it to be eaten. It was because it was considered lifnei el mayed. So going back to the brisa said, we quoted a brisa that says, Lishke sabnuyas. The brisa said that the chambers that were built on the outside of the courtyard, but the entrance was through the wall. Was the entrance to get into those chambers was coming from the holy. We considered it holy enough that you could eat there. You could eat there the kachim, but you couldn't shech there, and you couldn't. This is 1 second. The whole reason why you're allowed to eat in the courtyard is because it's lifnei el mayid, because you had the doorways. 1 second. Once you go into the chamber, maybe you don't have the doorway anymore. We already said before that it's possible that that for the shechita, the doorways would still consider it. The pishpashin would still consider it being towards the entrance. Anyway, Ravina answers, I'm Ravina, Sami Mikan Achila. You have to erase from the brisa, you have to erase the law of Achila that you're allowed to eat in the chambers. Where it says Vaksiv, but we have a pasuk by the inauguration. It says, Bashlu es abasar pesach el mayid, sham toichlo esei. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take out of the brisa the rule of achila. And what would that tell me? Oh, no, we weren't going to. What we're going to take out of the brisa of Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Yehuda's brisa. It said in Rabbi Yosi bar Yehuda's brisa, it says that they had 2 doorways in the back, 2 back doors that would allow the eating of the kachi kachim. He said, 1 second. We have a brisa that says that they were allowed to eat the kachi kachim in the chambers, and so we're thinking now that the back doors won't help for the chambers. So we answered that erase from the brisa the eating of the kachi kachim. Take that out because you really don't need the entranceway. It says that you should shecht in front of the entrance of the tent of meeting, but it doesn't mean the eating needs to be in the front of the tent of meeting. Eating could be even in the chambers. The Gemara says, 1 second, but how could you say that? I have a pasuk that by the inauguration sacrifice, it says that they cooked the meat at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and over there they ate it, which means that the eating needed to be at the entrance as well. So the Gemara says, well, that's a different story because kachi shah, shiny. Over there, it was a special inauguration offering that was only done 1 time. And over there, it needed to be eaten at the entrance of the tent of meeting. But normally, you don't need the entrance when it comes to the eating. The eating could be done even in the chambers. This is an interesting point that after the sacrifice was brought, the Kainim could take the sacrifice and go into the rooms and sit down. They could eat it sitting down. You see, in the courtyard itself, you're not allowed to sit down. In the rooms, there were demarcation lines that said where you're allowed to sit. There were markings like on the floor that could say this is considered outside. Over there you could sit. But if you can take the meat into those rooms, and the entire room is considered holy, then after the line you'd be allowed to eat sitting down. Otherwise, they're eating standing up.
They're eating with bread?
We had a discussion about that, if they were allowed to mix other things, but they were eating bread as well.
So where did they wash?
The kiyar, wash the hands. They're washing the
Don't
hands
you
off.
have to wash with- How you having them moving around?
It could have been water in other places. It's not true.
Only for us then.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it wouldn't be in the temple proper, right? If they're allowed to sit, it says in the courtyard they're not allowed to sit. In the room, 2 areas in each room. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Let me just see. Yeah. So, where did they sleep? On the other side of the in that room in the base of Mikid, on the other side was where they were sleeping.
I visit that museum that has the place of Mikdash was that slanted from below.
I don't know.
Yerushalayim something.
Yeah. It's not telling me over here. It does have it. It says in Yeshiva Bazar al Malcha Beis Bilvad. Taisvus writes. Where's the Taisvus? 45. Taisvus in Yuma writes that they're allowed to sit in the chambers. Then he writes that. Taisvus writes actually that they shouldn't be allowed to sit in the chambers because it's considered holy. So the Shara Melech brings from the Rambam. He writes from according to the opinion of the Rambam, they're allowed to sit in the chambers, even though it's considered holy and for certain aspects, because since you're not allowed to shech there, so it's not considered bebeis elikim nahalach baragash. From that pasuk we learn that you're not allowed to sit. So it's the sitting, the prohibition of sitting would only be in the area where you can shech. So in the chambers they'd be allowed to sit according to that. Okay, I would be much more comfortable. Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dumi, minayin ledam shenifsal b'shkias achama. Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dumi says, how do we know that if the blood wasn't sprinkled before sunset, that you're still allowed, that it becomes pasul at sunset? You're not allowed to sprinkle it after sunset. Shenemar, because the pasuk says, b'yem hakriva yasivcha yeyachal. It says, on the day that the sacrifice is brought, it should be eaten. B'yoim shata zeveach atamakriv. On the day that you slaughtered it, that's when you offer it up, which means that's when you sprinkle the blood. The following day, that you didn't shecht, then you're not allowed to offer up the blood. And now what we're saying here is that the day switches at sunset. The Gemara says, that's what you're telling me. You're telling me that's from this pasuk. You're telling me that the blood becomes pasul after sunset. Hi, mi boy leile gufei. this pasuk is needed for itself. You can't use that pasuk to teach me a side halacha when the pasuk is actually needed to tell me how long you have to eat the sacrifice. If we're dealing with the carbon shlamim, which that's what the pasuk is referring to, then you have 2 days in the night that's between them. So, but the
I know certainly in that pasuk that shows you the second day.
yeah, the pasuk says
The end of the pasuk.
if it's a gift offering, then on the day that it's Yom Hakriva Zivcha Yachal, it's eaten umi macharas and the following day. Yeah.
Me, I know certainly it's supposed to be. Am I looking at
Yeah, it's Banais Shemini Yachal. Yeah. So could be eaten on the following day. So the Gemara says, okay, so if I need the pasuk to tell me how long you have to eat it, and you're telling me that the pasuk is coming to tell me how long you have to sprinkle the blood, so I need it for something else. Im Kain, the Gemara answers, if so, if you're telling me that it's needed, and you can't learn from this, the name Makra, then the pasuk should have just said, B'yoim zivcha yeyachal, and then umi macharas, it would say. On the day that it was slaughtered, it could be eaten, and the following day. Why did it say B'yoim zivcha yeyachal? Why did the pasuk say B'yoim hakriva yesivcha? Why does it say the day that it was offered? Yeah, that extra word, hakrivai lamali. Why does it have to say the day that it was offered? Shma mina, it's coming to tell me the drasha that you only have that day to sprinkle the blood. Only on the day that it was slaughtered you can sprinkle the blood. That means when it becomes nightfall, it's too late to sprinkle the blood. Maybe the pasuk is coming to tell me the following: if the blood was brought at the day of the shechita, so good. Then I have today and tomorrow to eat it. But if the blood was offered the next day, then I'll have tomorrow to eat it in the day afterwards. Maybe it's not telling me that the blood has a time limit on when it needs to be sprinkled. Maybe it's just telling me that the time limit of eating is dependent on when the blood was sprinkled. If I sprinkle the blood today, then I have today and tomorrow. If I sprinkle the blood tomorrow, then I would have tomorrow and the day afterwards. Maybe it's not limiting the time of when I have to sprinkle the blood. It's just attaching the limitation of how long I have to eat it to the sprinkling of the blood. That we're suggesting that maybe not. The Gemara says, "Im Kain, if that's what it would mean, that the day that the shechita was not the deciding factor. It was the sprinkling of the blood that was deciding the factor. Then name makra, let the pasuk say b'yom hakriva yeyachal. Just say the day that it's offered, it's eaten, and the following day. Zivchei lamali. So why do you have to mention the slaughtering of it? Shma mina. So now it's safe because of the word slaughtering. So shma mina b'yom shatazeveyach ata makriva. B'yom shatazeveyach ata makriva. You only have the day that it was slaughtered to bring it to sprinkle the blood. You don't have the following day to sprinkle the blood after it was slaughtered. Okay. So we have over here the limitation on the eating of it, which is based on the limitation of the eating of it is based on when it was sprinkled, and the limitation of sprinkled is based on when it was slaughtered. Itmar mentioned that the carbon shlamim has 2 days to be eaten. Now, when does it become prohibited to eat it? So I have the rest of the day that it was offered, right? It had to be offered sometime before the afternoon, because the carbon tamid would be the last sacrifice, and that was done in the afternoon. So it had to be sometime in the midday, right? It had to be offered. You have the rest of the day that night, then the following day until Shkia. When it becomes Shkia, you have to stop eating the sacrifice, but you don't burn it yet. You don't burn the remnants yet. It's only burnt the following night in the morning. After the following night in the morning, it would be burnt. What was left over to the third day in the morning, that's when it burnt. And it wasn't burnt at night, the nicer. So now the Gemara says like this, Itmar. We have a statement from Amirayim, Hamachashiv. If someone is, at the time of slaughtering the sacrifice of a shlamim, he has intention to eat it la'or shlishi. Or Shlishi means the night, the third night. It's not the third night, it's really the second night. It's the night prior to the third day. That concept of washing before Shkia and then continuing, which you have by Shalosh Shudas, has to do with the obligation of Havdalah. This doesn't have anything to do with it. This is a time limit when you have to stop. There's no obligation that you're not allowed to eat food on Sundays. This is an obligation that you're not allowed to eat the meat on the following day. It's like Yom Kippur. If you wash before Yom Kippur, it doesn't allow you to eat anything. This is the time comes, it's finished.
It's the same lesson like Orla Boas.
Orla Basa, very good. Very good. La'ar Shlishi. So when it comes, if someone hasn't here, he's not leaving it till the third day. He has intention that he's going to eat it on the night after the second day. So Chizkiah says, kosher. Still, it's acceptable. We don't consider it pigul. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Pasor. Rabbi Yochanan says no, it's pigul. Chizkiah Amar kosher. Chizkiah says that the sacrifice is kosher, even though he had those thoughts. He says the la'yintik l'shreifa. Fact is, I know you're not allowed to eat it then, and you had thoughts of eating it then, but it's not considered nicer until the morning, where then you have to burn it. You're not allowed to eat it; you have to stop. It's sort of like in between. You don't eat it, but you don't burn it. He says so. Chizkiah says it's not considered out of its allotted time.
What if that day is Shabbos?
Yeah, you can eat the sacrifice on Shabbos.
No, burning.
Oh.
In the base of
I don't remember what it says. There were certain things that they didn't burn on Shabbos. They waited till the night. There's certain things that they would burn on Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan says that it's pasul, because the fact is you're not allowed to eat it then, and you had thoughts of eating it then, so that becomes pigul. Considered chutzlas mane, which is pigul. Why are we calling it pasul if it's really pigul? Any comment on the word pasul? Okay. So we have another machlekes that's very similar to this. It says ha'oichel la'ar shlishi. Let's say someone actually eats it at the time when he wasn't supposed to because it's after the second day. The last Gemara that we just learned right now was not when he actually ate it then. By the shechita, he had thoughts of eating it then. And does it invalidate the sacrifice? Now we have someone that's actually eating it then. So take a look at this. Chizkiah Amar Pater. Chizkiah says he's exempt. Because it's not the time of burning it yet. You're not supposed to eat it, but you did. And you did, but it's not the time of burning, so you're going to be Pater. Pater if you ate it by mistake, Pater for bringing a chatas. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you're Chayev to bring a chatas because it's considered nicer if it was by mistake. Because you're not allowed to eat it anymore. Okay, Tanya Kavasei Rabbi Yochanan, we're going to have a brisa that's going to support the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that once the day is over, it's already chayev. It says sacrifices that you only have one day to eat. For example, a carbon chatas, an ayla, which an ayla you don't eat, but a carbon chatas mechashrin b'daman mishetishka chama. It becomes pigul once if a person thinks that he's going to eat it after the sun sets. You're mixing time and space. Okay, you and Einstein. Okay, so
Question,
yeah,
not from Einstein though. At night, is it just the Kohanim who are eating?
most of the sacrifices are only lezichrei kuna for the male kayanim. If it's kachim kachim, kachim kalim, which was taken into Yerushalayim, that would be anyone would be eating it. Yeah.
Okay, within the Beis Hamikdash, it's just Kohanim.
It'd just be Zichrei Kainim, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
There was one sacrifice. Which one was it? The Nesheim Levneim Olavdeim. Which sacrifice was that? Yeah. Was that the, which one was that? We had it yesterday. Was it the Israel B'Shela? Was it the El Nazar? Okay, whatever the case is over here, now we're holding.
It sounds like
Yeah,
Truma.
I think so. Sounds like Truma, right? So here we have a brisa that supports Rabbi Yochanan. We're talking about if someone has thoughts. I said to eat. It can't be to eat. Someone has thoughts to sprinkle the blood. By the shechita, he has thoughts to sprinkle the blood after shkia. As he does a shechita, and while he's doing the shechita, he thinks that I'm going to sprinkle the blood, but right when it gets dark, right when it's nightfall. So that would be pigul, and you'd be chayiv kares if it's b'mezid, and if he eats it when it's b'mezid, and he's also have to bring a carbon if it's b'shayk. If he has thoughts regarding the meat, you see, bidaman, the first part of the brisa was bidaman. If it's thoughts about sprinkling the blood, then those thoughts would make it pigul already when it's from sunset. When are the thoughts of the meat, of eating the meat and the or burning of the organs? That's mishiyala muda shachar. That's from the morning. Okay. That's kachi kachim. Kachim and achal mishnayim v'layla echad. The other sacrifices which you have 2 days and 1 night, for example, a shlamim. Mechashim b'damish tishkachama. You're right. Regarding the blood, it's the same thing. Once, if he has thoughts by the shechita that he's going to sprinkle the blood after sunset, that's already pigul. When it comes to burning the organs, that's going to be, if he has thoughts of burning them after it becomes morning, that's also going to be pigul. And ubebesaran, when it comes to eating the meat, from sunset of the second day, which is not what Chizkiah said. Chizkiah said that it would only be pigul if he has thoughts of eating it after the morning of the third day, not from the sunset of the second day. So this is a proof. This supports Rabbi Yochanan. Very clear proof. Taner Rabbanos, Taner Bais, Yachal Yu Nechalim La'ar Shlishi. Could have thought that maybe when it comes to a shlamim, you're allowed to eat it on the night prior to the third day. And it could even be logical because when it comes to eating in the 1 day sacrifice, eating it, the sacrifice that you have a limitation of just 1 day. How long are you allowed to eat it? And then the sacrifices that are eaten for 2 days, how long allowed to eat it? We're going to see in a second. If it's sacrifices that you only have 1 day, then halayla achareyim, you're allowed to eat it the entire night. So so too, the sacrifice that have 2 days, the night should follow the day, and you should be allowed to eat it the entire night. That's what I could have thought. So Talmud Laimar, so the pasuk says, "Naisar ad yaim," what's left over till the day, when it says ad yaim, ba'oid yaim hu nechal. Only while it's day, it could be eaten. So in other words, we're dropping what it says. It's very interesting because if you look at the whole pasuk, it says, on the day that it's shechted, it's eaten, and the following day, and what's remaining until the third day is burnt in fire. So there would be a big comma before and what's remaining till the third day, because on its day that it's shechted is eaten, and the next day, that would go together as one clause. What's remaining until the third day is something totally different, is burnt. The way the Gemara is learning it is it's eaten on the day that it's shechted and the next day, and what's remaining while it's day. Remaining while it's day means that only until nightfall. It's like as if that's part of the first clause. Only while it's still day, not after it gets dark. It can't be eaten that night. The Gemara says, "Yachal yisaref miyad." Maybe you should burn it right when it becomes nightfall. B'dinu, and it could even be logical because take a look at like this. There's some sacrifices that are 1 day to eat. Some sacrifices have 2 days. Those sacrifices that have 1 day to eat, right after the time of eating, you burn it right away. Why? Because you have the whole night to eat it. And in the morning you burn it. So let's say the same thing. Also sacrifice that have 2 days to eat. Take a plachilas reifa. Right when you're not allowed to eat it, you should burn it, which means nightfall. You should burn it at nightfall. Where it says Talmud Laimar, the pasuk teaches us, on the 3rd day it's burnt in fire. You only burn it by day. You don't burn it by night.
They can only be burnt on the Mizbeach, right? The reason I'm asking these questions, I'm trying to figure out practically what happened. Because the non-Kohanim, have to leave the Beis HaMikdash at night. So if they're eating at night, they must have taken the meat with them. They must go somewhere where there's a fire and they can cook it. And then what they don't get done in the time frame, they have to bring back in to the Beis HaMikdash, or somebody has to bring back in the next day.
So, let me clarify.
Please.
The sacrifices that are eaten in the temple courtyard were mainly only eaten by the male kohanim.
Right.
Sacrifices that are leaving the temple courtyard could be eaten by anyone.
Mm-hmm.
By the families, anyone. They didn't have to be kohanim, didn't have to be men, the women.
Right.
Now, if it's left over too long, either one of these, whether it was stayed in the courtyard or whether it left the courtyard because you have the whole area, on the 3rd day or whatever, and when it was turned into nicer, it had to be burnt in fire. I don't believe that it was burnt on the Mizbeach. I think it was burnt where they burnt the things that were puzzle.
Which is outside the Mikdash?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the organs of a kosher sacrifice were put up on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
It was put on the altar. The carbon oil was put on the altar. The things that became invalid, I think, were burnt outside, not on the altar.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Let's leave it by the Mishnah. It would be an easy place to stop, and then hopefully we'll be able to finish the parak tomorrow. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.